So forget everything you thought you knew. Do giants actually exist? Joe Rogan and Timothy Alberino got into this topic in depth, in detail. The Kandahar giant, and then maybe not even giant, but giants. Could these things be, if they really exist, could these things be the Nephilim that are here to this day? I want to start it off with, first of all, reading from the Genesis account. This is from the Bible itself, Genesis chapter 6. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, "My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown." So that's not just from the book of Enoch. That is in our Bible, the canon of Scripture. We're going to start off with, if you're not familiar with Timothy Alberino, he's a archaeologist. He gets into, like, he goes out. He doesn't just like sit back in his chair. He goes to these places and discovers a lot of these things regarding the Bible, about these conspiracies, UFOs. He gets into a lot of this. He's a person that I have wanted Joe Rogan to have on his podcast for a while now, and I can almost rest in peace now that he's had him on there. But we're going to start it off with Timothy Alberino brings up, he says, out of all the topics I discuss, nothing makes me more uncomfortable than the topic of giants, and specifically the Kandahar giants.
Well, I've heard a lot of things about giants in Afghanistan. And I find that, I talk about a lot of different topics. I talk about a lot of UFO stuff. And I say some things that I know could get me in trouble. But nothing makes me more nervous than talking about giants, specifically the Kandahar giant and the giants in Kandahar in general.
Why?
First of all, I want to just take a look at this. This is Afghanistan itself. What Kandahar is. Kandahar, it's not the name of the giant. Kandahar is a major city and province in southern Afghanistan where U.S. forces operated extensively during the war. According to the story, an American military unit encountered a huge red-haired humanoid near a remote mountain cave in that general region. So Kandahar describes the alleged location. It isn't the giant's name. The exact location, date, military unit, and identities of the soldiers have never been publicly verified, which is why the story remains an unconfirmed legend. Military legend. So this is Kandahar. As you can see, that's Afghanistan. I'm going to zoom out, or actually make you a little dizzy. There's Iran. We're familiar with Iran now, where it's at. Probably even zoom out a little bit more. You can see over here, Saudi Arabia and all that. But if we zoom into Afghanistan in the southern part, I'm making it really confusing. There's the city of Kandahar, and that's where this specific legend, it's now almost a legend, where it took place.
Mainly because when I talk to people who know things, they're very, very nervous when we get to this topic. And some of them will just flat out will not talk about giants in general, but specifically giants in Afghanistan. And some of these guys are high-level guys that worked at the Pentagon, and they'll talk rather freely with me about UFOs. But as soon as we broach this topic, it's like they literally will warn me, be careful with this topic.
What?
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
So why would he be scared of this topic, giants? And why would people out there be scared of this? He gets into his speculation of it because it doesn't necessarily, it's not going to disprove evolution. It's not going to just validate the Bible because it talks about the Bible, or in the Bible it talks about giants and it shows it in there. Because, I mean, even in evolution itself, like, they could come up with some reason why this gene made these people big or whatever, and that's why that is there. But for some reason, it is so hush-hush that people in high-up positions in government that have well-notable names, but they cannot discuss this. They're very uncomfortable about talking about it. And Timothy Alberino, his speculation is it has to do with the occult. That is why it's on the down low. It's on the hush-hush. It's on a need-to-know basis. And don't say anything, don't talk about that. And I can understand that, like, because this has made me cause for pause and regard, like, we have all these conspiracies out there, and how could it really hold water? How could these people, these regular people, keep it all so tight-lipped and secure that it doesn't actually get out? The only thing that I could come to a conclusion would be it's not just people, it's not just regular people, but it's something deeper, darker, more intelligent that's out there. That is why people are why it's able to keep on the down low, and it's able to continue throughout generations and not miss a beat. That's the only thing that could keep these things intact. In this next clip, this is actually where Timothy Alberino, he brings this up. He just exactly what we talked about.
So the only thing left on the table for me is that there's something very sinister going on in regard to the remains of giants. And if you study the mythology of giants all over the world, especially in the ancient Near East, you will discover that there was, in fact, a cult of giants, that there were cultures that venerated giants, and that there was a very particular belief about giants. And this goes back into the book of Enoch. And the idea is that this race of beings who are not entirely human, they're hybrids, that when they die, you can still make contact with their spirits, with their souls. They can be summoned. In fact, these are in the New Testament of the Bible, these are the demons that possess people. This is the origin of demons, by the way, in Hebrew cosmology. So there's this pervasive idea, again, especially in the ancient Near East, that dead giants can be communicated with and can possess living human beings, their spirits. And so you have a cult of giants in the ancient Near East, especially among the Canaanites.
So whether this event actually happened, whether there really was the Kandahar giant, so the story goes that these soldiers, they brought this coffin or whatever, this big, huge like pallet, but it was like almost 10 feet tall. But it's like of this man or something is underneath, like curled up in a fetal position. Is it fetal or fetus position? Fetal position. But they could see his hand sticking out. And the story goes that they came across like these giants in these caves, red-haired giants that were just enormous, eating the flesh and the blood of human beings. And that, whether that is just embellished or whatever, you can say that it's just fakery right now, and it's just a story, it's a legend. Some soldiers just wanted to cook up something. You can't get away from the fact that it is talked about in the Bible. And whether these people are just making it up to try to like sound like something of the Bible, that it's in our real life today. But even the Bible talks about there's an event that happened, but that the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, but also afterward. Like it was a continuing thing. So the story of what is actually going on, and I didn't always agree with this. And I think most people that grow up in the church, that learn these stories, the natural Sunday school answer is not that angels cohabitated with women, but it's the story of the genealogies of Seth and the genealogies of Cain. It's just the evil sons of Adam and the good sons of Adam, and then they were just mingling together, because obviously it's clear, like, angels can't have sexual intercourse with humans, or can they? And when you actually get into it, this actually opens up a lot of what is happening in the Bible, that this was a real event. It was a tradition that was passed along from Enoch, which we have as the book of Enoch, but that itself is just a tradition, a story that was compiled together of this event that took place. That it really actually happened, and it opens up the scriptures. It opens up the Old Testament as well as the New Testament. This was what was coursing through the apostles' mind when they thought about the angels and this event that happened. They referred to it. They alluded to it multiple times. They talked about women, cover your hair so that to shield yourself from the angels. That's what Paul talks about in Corinthians. So it is something that it makes the Bible like make sense in a lot of ways, where it's kind of like, what is it even referring to? What is it even talking about? But whether the Nephilim, like, because what that is, all that is angels that were from heaven. They make this pact, that they go under this oath together, that they're going to commit this evil atrocity. They're going to leave their proper abode, and they're going to cohabitate with women. They're going to have sexual intercourse with women so that they can have children. And it seems like they're trying to disrupt the messianic line, because it's, as humans, as sons of Adam, as children of Adam, that which we are. If you're a human, if you are a legitimate human, You are a son or a daughter of Adam, and you are a rightful heir of this world. We are to have dominion over this world. And it seems like there were angels, or what we refer as just angels, these heavenly beings, they're sons of God, whatever they were in fact. But they are almost that they were jealous of our position, and they wanted to somehow mess up God's plan. But what God always does is he takes things that Satan or whatever wants to mess up, and he makes it, and he uses it for his plan and makes a greater good out of it. But I wouldn't even say that the event that took it about with the angels that did this atrocity, that came into our world and created these Nephilim, that had children, it doesn't seem like they're part of Satan's brigade, or they're not part of his army. It's almost like they were a different cohort of angels that did this. It's not like Satan himself was in on this. That's not really what it describes in the Bible. It doesn't seem like because these angels that did this, they were not allowed to continue on. They were immediately cast into hell to wait until the judgment, the final judgment. It says that in the book of Jude, that they were immediately put in chains of darkness to wait until that great day. That's what they're doing. So Satan doesn't seem like be a part of that, because he is still operating very strongly. But what we think of as demons and what is fleshed out, literally fleshed out in the New Testament, it's not that these demons, what they're talked about in the New Testament, are actual angels or fallen angels, which is what I used to think. But actually, they are these disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, these great, huge giants that were just looked up as to gods in this world, that people worshipped and wanted to, they had to sacrifice to. It was like this golden age that was happening. But God, in order to purify it, to keep the line of the human genome pure, and not let the whole human race devolve into this hybrid status or whatever, that's why the great flood happened. That's kind of what makes sense, why the whole Noah's flood, all that took place. This just opens up everything. And I would say the Kandahar giants, what is actually happening there, this experience, whatever took place, I think there's a lot of these things, there is always some truth there. Whether, there's just mixed messaging to try to throw in some falsehood to try to throw people off what actually happened. There probably was something that was going on, because Timothy Alberino expresses this, that he has people that are in the know who have very high positions and are willing to talk about certain topics. But when you breach this subject of the giants, and it's not, which it doesn't make sense. Why would they want to hide it so much? Would it validate the Bible? And what's that really going to do? Because I don't think the people that are in the highest positions, the highest spots in this world, are scared that God is going to be proven true. It's they know that he is, but what they're operating under is Lucifer is the real God. He's the real powerful agent, and this Yahweh figure is just this rogue character who just went out and wanted to create a physical world and all that. But really, Lucifer is looked up to as the good one. And that's what a lot of Christians need to understand, that it's not just some that these atheists or whatever they want to call themselves, atheists or agnostics, there are people that are legitimately that. But a lot of these hidden circles are people that are really in the know, as in they understand that this, what we would say is darkness in this world, these heavenly beings that are dark and of the evil, they're evil. They look at them as light figures, the spiritually enlightened, and they worship them. And that's what's going on. And it makes sense, how Satan could keep a lot of these, what we think of as conspiracies, up and live and real and going, because if it's just people, somebody's going to crack, somebody's going to crumble, somebody's going to let the cat out of the bag, and people are going to find out, what's actually going on. But the ones that can keep it actually going, the real deals, the real secret things, there's probably a lot of fakery out there that aren't real. That's why they throw a lot of falsehoods in there just to mix up the pot and get everybody confused. But when we're talking about these giants, these Nephilim characters, this is not just something that started at the beginning, but it's going to come around. It's going to the ending is going to be similar to the days of Noah. that these figures that are out there, that's why it's probably there's a constant rebellion. It's not just there was one rebellion happening in the heavenly realms, the unseen realm, but there's probably ongoing rebellions that are taking place, which with angels and doing this and entering this world. And it's not like we're identifying them with aliens, like they're aliens themselves, but there is probably they use or utilize whatever these other things are, aliens are that are out there. There probably is something going on there, but they're probably just like almost NPC like figures, like the Greys, the little gray guys that are going in and just trying to breed into women and all that, and to do all these things that they abduct people and take them and have these experiments on them and all that. They're probably just certain like beings that are out there, but are being used by these dark forces, these dark angels, because we see Satan is going to have a very strong role at the end of the age, in which he has right now, because it's not like Satan's just on the back burner and he's just like, I'm just going to see what's going to happen or whatever. No, Satan is extremely active in this world. He's called the God of this world. He's the one that has the world in his sway, in his power, puts people in positions that he wants. That's the temptation he gave to Jesus when he was here, the true Son of God. He said, I can give you all the kingdoms of this world. Disregard that whole cross thing. You don't need to die for people. I can give it to you all now. You're the rightful heir. I can give it to you now. And that was a temptation. That was a legitimate temptation for Jesus. So he had to say, get away from me, Satan. And he had to resist that temptation to avoid the cross. So Satan certainly has power. He's very active right now. And that's probably what is going on. That there are these giants out there that are, like even in the Americas, like in North America, there are the stories of like in the 1800s, like the Indians and all that, the Native Americans, whatever you want to call them, that they had mounds, that they worshiped these burial mounds, that they were at these places, then they were probably containing giants, like the bones of giants, and that they like almost this necromancy, calling up the dead, because there is power in that, and it's very dark arts, it's very scary, it's real. God doesn't tell us to stay away from that to make us not have fun, but because he knows that it is legitimate, that you can call up these dead beings, these necromancy and all that. That's what's going on. And I think that's what is happening with these Kandahar giants. There's probably something going on over there that these beings are continuing to live on. I believe it is probably actually happening, because and it's not like we can verify, but if this is something that is that people that are soldiers, U.S. soldiers, that have to be like put a mouth guard on, you cannot talk about this, there has to be a reason for it. It's not just something that's going to validate the Bible. It's not something that's going to just prove evolution, but it's something deeper and darker that's going on. And that's why I could see that the occult, the Baal worshipers, and it's stupid people that, like, we're all stupid, I guess, but people that fall into this, that Satan is just using certain people, that he can just take their mind and utilize them in this world to be agents of him in this world, that fall under his spell, that they think they're worshiping this light, this enlightened figure through these sons of God, these Nephilim or whatever, these beings that are out there. But really, they're losing their souls. That's why people are they get caught up in these very dark things. And it's probably a lot of people that are at the very tippy top, because who can put people at the very tippy top? It's Satan, because he has the power to do it. So, but let me know what you all think. I'm more interested in about the Kandahar giants. I love these stories, but I actually think there's actual truth behind it of what's going on. There is Nephilim. There were Nephilim in those days as well, because Jesus said it'll be just like the days of Noah when he comes back. That means people are going to be intermingling, whether that's through, just these genetic mutations and all this stuff, like cloning and hybridization and all that's going to be happening. When people are going to be corrupting themselves, the plants are going to be corrupting themselves, the animals, and that's what was happening in the days of Noah, and it's going to be like almost on the loop, an encore of that version before Jesus comes back. So there's a lot of truth here, and I'm glad that Timothy Alberino was able to express it on the biggest podcast in the world. So I will leave it at that. All right. Drop a comment and I will see you on the next one.